alternative universe. It's like when my kids, they're football fans. Unfortunately, they're not Charger fans, but they're still football fans. Unfortunately, because I'm here, but anyway, because wherever I go, I'm usually not in front of a crowd that likes the teams I like. But so usually that's off the table because when you go and it's kind of a separate discussion. But when they're watching their team play and they're losing, usually they'll either pray or they'll read to do something. And I mean, should they use it for that? Probably not. But at least they're not, getting full on, go all nuts and go crazy and being affected by that. I'd rather them do, their little prayer or they read, some of the ancient Kabbalah books to give some energy to I'd rather them do that than be affected and be upset by the outcome. So, part of the problem in the way the world looks, part of the problem in having decisions that lead to problems, or the direct decisions that will affect a disaster like the oil thing, or different ways when we have this, is some of the systems that our world and our country is based on. Some of the actual systems actually make it possible for these course of actions to take place. A little history on systems that were created. The first system that came to place was the Greeks. The Greeks were mathematical. Pythagoras. When we grew up, we had all these Greek Pythagorean theorem, all this stuff, all the beginning of mathematics and a system of mathematics started in ancient Greece. And everything was mathematical. Probability. So if two people had an argument, this guy said this guy said that, the people in charge of the court would get together and mathematically figured out who is more probably to be right. And it was a probable-based kind of society. And one would be right if it was more of a chance that he was right. That's the beginning of the systems in this world. The Romans came, and they couldn't deal with this 80% business. It was not definite for them. They wanted a system where there was a right and a wrong. The person who was yes and the person who was no. They couldn't deal with this probability business. Probably also because it was a Greek thing, they had to do a new system, and everyone who comes always needs to do something new. So they came up with a genius plan. Two people have an argument, great. We'll give both of them spears, and the last man standing, he was right. So, genius. Was it always right? No, probably 50% of the time. The person who was stronger, the better person who handling a spear. But they needed a definitive answer. They found a way. Throw them into octagon. Whoever comes out was right. Now, some of that has seeped into our today's world. Some of those, faulted systems. They've been in the last 15 years, at least, and probably throughout time, especially in this country, companies and people take advantage of the system. Whether it was, Enron, or all these corporations who figured out a way to figure out the system. And is it just their fault? Obviously not. It's also the system who enables people to cheat the system. It's not just the cheaters who are at fault. It's also the system that enables cheaters. and the people who loved stock prices going up. And it's everybody. It's not just the person who's at fault, but the system that enables that. Or think about this. I was thinking about this 2 days ago. You walk into a fast food place, and for $1, you get a Coke, fries, and a hamburger. For $1. They have these commercials for $1. You get what kind of world do we live in? For $1, you could get hamburger, a drink, and fries, and they're still making a lot of money. And they're still making enough money to have Michael Jordan do commercials for them. Like, it's therefore, what kind of food is in there, and how much nutrition is in there, and how the system that we allow, and again, it's built on our choices, because the person's at fault is also the person who goes in there and says, okay, I want that for $1. Or you go to a store and you say, and a shirt is marked down to $3. And knowing that potentially that shirt could come from a supplier who buys it from China, and there's 7-year-old kids who are producing that shirt. Because for a shirt to make money at $5 or $7, somewhere it's costing 50 cents. And the only potential way that a shirt could cost 50 cents, there are 7-year-old people in some work camp making them. And who's at fault? Everyone's at fault. Because we have to ask the questions. How is this shirt $5, $7, $10? Imagine yourself, you walk into a store and you see things that just look too good to be true. A lot of times they are too good to be true. And the people at fault is not just the person who knows that they're hiring these kids, or all this, all that. It's all the way through. All the way through. And some of our systems are based on these, not great systems. And the way to actually start making things different, the way to make things different, we all could sometimes wake up and have big ideas. I want to make, the world that we live in should be better. Because I know, I personally believe in God, and I don't believe that God created this world to look the way it looks today. Most of us believe in some form of higher power. I personally I pray to God, and I have a connection to God. And I don't believe, and this is a question regardless of believing in God. I don't believe that anyone who looks at the world that looks exactly the way it is today actually believes that this was the master plan in creating of the world, where there's billions of people who are starving for food every day, where there's disasters that happen all the time, where there's crime rates and homeless people. There's so many issues that the world faces. And I do believe that we could start a course of action that won't solve the problem in a year or two, maybe not in 4 years. We elect a president for 4 years thinking they could solve our problems. The problems that they inherit as a president took longer than 4 years to create. It's going to take longer than 4 years or even 8 years to correct. And we're easy to want change, and when it doesn't happen, to abandon change. And problems that were caused in this world took forever to cause. And it's going to take some time and effort to make them different. But it starts with us. It starts with us trying to make decisions and make choices that maybe be difficult. Or at least ask the question. At least ask the question. If we see things that don't look exactly, ask the question. Ask the question. We need to be a little more aware of everything that happens in our world. Just a little more aware. And the most important question we could ask is, what can I do about it? And am I